Hey everyone, Reid Henrichs of Valor. The purpose of this video is to talk about the cult of the greater good and what that means for all of us. Let's go ahead and get started. You know, it's been a while since I've done a video, and you guys probably noticed that, but the reality is that I'm far too busy these days to do videos every couple of days or even every week or even every couple of weeks. The demands for the time is there. We're coming up on our 10th year of being in business, and we do classes, and we not only do scheduled classes but private ones as well, so my time is just not available like it used to be. But that said, when I do a video for you, I'm going to put out some really well thought out stuff, not just knee-jerk reactions to current topics or address every single little fire that comes out every single day. That said, I appreciate you being here. We'll make it worth your while, give you some historical perspective, give you some perspective when it comes to our rights and people that use ulterior motives to try to deprive us of our rights. So if you saw the title of the video, The Cult of the Greater Good, last couple weeks I've been watching documentaries about various cults from current times and even times past. Places like Jonestown, the NXIVM stuff. You know, I saw what about the fundamentalist Latter-day Saints out in Arizona and Utah and all that stuff. And you know, it kind of hit me that there's this common denominator in all of that. The common denominator in it is they're always doing things for the greater good. And you'll hear a lot of leftists say the same thing. This is for the greater good. Your individual rights don't trump the greater good. You know, we heard this during COVID. You know, your rights shouldn't violate anybody's, you shouldn't violate society's greater good. Well, first of all, the entire purpose of the United States is individual liberty. That's why it was started. That's why if you read the Declaration of Independence, it says we're endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights. That this is life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And to secure these rights, governments are instituted amongst men. Well, when you look at people that clamor for the greater good, it's never about the individual. It's never about the person. It's always about using pressure, whether that's societal pressure, whether that's peer pressure, whether that's governmental coerced pressure, in order for people to give up rights in order to secure the quote-unquote greater good. But one question you may want to ask these people, certainly these leftists, these statists, these Marxists, whatever you want to call them, they all want to use the government for power. They're all the same. They're all the same. They're all the same. So when we look at stuff, ask them one question. How far are you willing to go in order to enact your utopia? How far are you willing to go in order to make your perfect society? How far are you willing to go to be personally, emotionally satisfied with what you want to do? That's the best question you can ask them. And you know what the answer is? Or even taxation. How far are you willing to tax people? How much? What percentage of someone's income are you willing to tax them in order to bring about your programs in your society? And you know what the answer will always be, inevitably? As much as it takes. I just read an article today from the University of Chicago. It was a study done, and it says that Democrat support for the use of force in order to coerce Congress to adopt their will has doubled, more than doubled. It's gone up 2.5 times. It went from 7% all the way up to 16%. Now, these are people that said they are willing to use physical force, violence, to coerce Congress. This is the same group of people that was willing to do the same thing to the Supreme Court, whether that's a nominee or whether it's an actual sitting justice, in order to intimidate them, in order to rule the way that they want them to rule. So in other words, they don't want a functioning republic. They want a system of government based on their whining and crying, and what they want to be willing to do is intimidation in order to get their will. So not free government. You know, in the beginning, when I started Valor Ridge, it was always to help people protect themselves against violent criminals, whether that's, you know, people under the influence of drugs just trying to deprive you of your property or threaten your physical security. These are petty criminals. And also, to a small degree, help people become proficient in order to protect themselves against a government that would assume powers that wasn't there. But as the years have gone by, what I found is that it's becoming increasingly more likely for people to have a small little group of people like Antifa, Black Lives Matter, any other leftist Marxist drivel group, that's willing to use physical violence and intimidation in order to deprive their fellow citizens of their rights. And yes, although these groups are very small, and people with those viewpoints are exceptionally small percentage-wise compared to the vast population, I'd like to remind you that throughout history, every single movement has started small. The Bolsheviks started small. The National Socialist Workers' Party started small. And we have to look at that, and when these things happen, it's like, well, what's their goal? You know, their goal is to make a country, a society that bends to their will and to use existing mechanisms of government to enact their will, or to take over that government and then use the force of that government in order to do that. But the genius of our founders is that they saw these things happen. They understood what factions were. James Madison discusses faction in his 10th Federalist Essay and the dangers all of that provided. And then, of course, in his 46th Federalist Essay, he mentions the importance of being armed. He mentions the importance of the American people possessing firearms and knowing how to use them. So we do have these mechanisms in place to prevent all that from happening. So when you look at these groups that want to coerce people into thinking and doing exactly what they do, very common techniques they use is getting rid of any opposition. Right? And you see this with rabid leftist Democrats today. You got to destroy Donald Trump. We got to destroy RFK Jr. Destroy them. Either destroy them physically or destroy them in terms of their reputation. You know, that's one of Saul Alinsky, one of the great leftists of all times, one of the people that they take all their marching orders from and take their instruction from is, he said the greatest tool in destroying debate is ridicule. And when you look at what the main leftist talking about is ridicule, scoffing at people that disagree with them. So you got to get rid of the opposition. That's number one. Second thing a lot of these groups did, especially in Jonestown, especially in the FLDS, the fundamentalist Mormons out there, one thing that they like to do is take away everybody's guns. You had to turn in all your guns. And in Jonestown, it was the only people who had guns was Jim Jones enforcers. So there's a lot of mechanisms, and those are small microcosms of the mechanisms of control that these people would gladly enact. Gladly. They would gladly enact it. 10 years ago, if you would have said, oh, remember they're talking about, no one's coming for your guns, and now they're outright open about it. They're open about it. They will gladly tell you that, yes, they don't want you to have any guns at all. Not just semi-automatic rifles, not just semi-automatic pistols, not just ones that can hold more than 6 rounds, because then 10 becomes 6, becomes 5, becomes 4. It's always that way. And, you know, that's another mechanism they use. But I will tell you this, one thing that broke a lot of those vicious cycles away from those cults was one person or one small little group of people that were willing to stand up and rock the boat. People that were willing to be brave enough to challenge the leadership. People that were brave enough to say, you're full of crap, and here's why you're full of crap. And not only that, but I'm going to help other people see this as well. And I think that we're in a time now where there are more and more people that value freedom, that value our republic, that value the right to keep and bear arms, that value the right of free speech, the right to exercise religion, the right to have valid, accurate information, not suppressed. Right? There are people out there that are becoming more and more aware of what's happening. So I'm going to encourage you all out there for a moving forward is when you see something when you hear these kind of mechanisms of control, stand up against it. You don't have to sit there and tolerate it. There's no like narrow path. Oh, if I challenge anything, I'm going to be destroyed. No, you're not. There are more and more people all over the time speaking out against this stuff. I remember during 2020 all the way till now, and even before then, especially those real dark times of like 2021, 2022, I took very strong stances against masks, very strong stances about experimental injections against people. When we're seeing stuff happen all the time now where people are just collapsing and fainting, whatever you want to attribute that to. Geez, it happens. Healthy people fall down all the time and have heart attacks, don't they? Well, no, that must be something new, and I wonder what it coincides with. And, you know, when I'm looking at stuff and people talking about how you need to give up your firearms, oh, you need to give up your freedoms for the greater good, oh, you got to give up, you got to sacrifice for that. No, you don't. No, you do not. You have pursuit of happiness, which means that you can pursue the happiness that you do and that you want. You can acquire property, you can live your life, you can go out and have the liberty as a free individual to go out and do the things that you need to do, provided you're not hurting anybody else. And the biggest thing that people want to talk about is this greater good concept. That's collectivism. The United States is based on individual liberty. They are diametrically opposed to each other. The only collective right that we have as Americans is to stand up and defy tyranny. That's the only collective right that exists. And if you really want to get serious about your rights, you want to get serious about this, educate yourself as to what kind of republic our founders wanted. Educate yourself as to how leftists seek to undermine and destroy a republic from within, and control mechanisms that weak-minded people that are insecure try to impose on other people. And look at those sides. They're all over the place out there through the flow of information. You know, through suppressing people's videos, through suppressing people's articles, suppressing what they say, or mocking and ridiculing them in public and trying to make them seem as if they're some absurd individual, just like they're doing to RFK Jr., just like they're trying to do to Donald Trump. You know, can you imagine if we actually had a free and fair media, what it would look like on a daily basis? Who would be questioned? We're living in a country where they have to turn everything on its head. The insane appears sane. The sane appears insane. You know, Nietzsche used to say that truth is the enemy of the state. And that's exactly where we're at right now. Truth is the enemy of the state. But, you know, and Ron Paul, going on the same vein, said, in the empire of lies, truth is treason. Well, if you want to become an outlaw by telling the truth, wear that label proudly, because every person that's worth remembering in history at one point became an outlaw in one form or another because of their beliefs. They did not sacrifice their personal beliefs based on what small little minority group wanted to deprive them of their rights. Speak out firmly against this stuff. Don't be browbeaten into submission. Just because a group of people tells you that you're messed up and wrong, that doesn't mean that you are. We have fundamental truths. We have absolute liberty within the rights that we're guaranteed by living here. And furthermore, you have a right to keep and bear arms in order to protect yourself against any and all threats to your rights. If you found the information in the video helpful, subscribe to the channel. Follow me on social media, the links down below. If you want to learn how to protect yourself and your family, come on out to Valor Ridge and we can help you. This is Reid Henrichs of Valor reminding you, the lessons that we learn are written on the tombstones of others. We'll see you on the ridge.